So as you can see, I've got all the card guides on. I guess I actually printed one extra because I had enough, even with the one from the previous video that was stripped out. So pretty nice, pretty happy with that. I do need to do some more cleanup on these. There's little bits of fuzz and stuff from the 3D printing process. But really the next thing is to get power to it. So let me set this guy aside. On my development S100 machine, I had been using this set of switching power supplies. So I've got a plus and minus 15 volt 1 amp. It's got 5 volt 4 amp, and then this is a plus 7.5 36 amp, which is tremendously overkill for this, I believe. I believe I could tweak up really close, if not to 8 volts. So really I think the goal here is I'm just going to reuse these two. This way it's only 2 switchers I need to mount in the case. I've bought plus 15, a couple plus 15, and I could mount those in a bipolar configuration, but there'd be 3 switchers inside of the case, and I really only need 2. I am going to save the wires here. They are terminated correctly for the development system. So these 2 come off. Remember how to pull the cover off here without breaking it. And this one that carries the plus 8, and this one that carries ground to the system. I will clean this wiring up once it's actually in the case and make it look nicer. What I'm putting together now is really just for testing. It's interesting that I had white labeled positive. The way I'm wired the motherboard up, the yellow lead is really the positive. This guy is rather short. I wish I had a yellow about the same length as the brown here. I'm going to end up using just a different wire. It's only carrying an amp. It's not going to be a huge deal. I don't know if this wire here will work. Let me take a peek at what I've got inside of it. Oh yeah, that'll be fine. Plenty of wire there. Get these trimmed to about the same length. Strip, that's better. And then I've got these 2 sets of twisted for ground and plus 8 that I'm just going to use as a single wire, just so I have a little bit extra current carrying capacity. Assuming I can actually get it to strip. One of these is a good diameter for it. I say when I finalize this, I will actually put crimp-on connectors on everything and do it a little nicer, but for testing, I'm just going to directly use the stripped ends. Not meant to be an exact reproduction. Wow, you're being stubborn. Glad I found these wire strippers. I forgot I had these. I was looking for a different tool and it was like, that's where my wire strippers ended up. I ended up with this and a pair of automatic ones that work. They're not awesome. multiple taps here that I can get into for ground. I will run one lead in there for ground. Yeah, I got this switcher on eBay. It's supposedly come out of a piece of medical gear that was serviced, and the power supply had, you know, hit the end of the service life and whatever that piece of medical gear was. And I have no idea what that length of time was, but it's served me well for a lot of years. You know, in my 18 slot machine that this was being used in. I'll have to look. I've got a couple other switchers around here as well that I don't think are as heavy as 36 amps that I may end up putting in the final build. Power switch. My color coding scheme. I used yellow as the plus 16 rail. Hopefully I can get a good solid bite on that. If I did. And I've used brown for the minus 16 rail. That brings out the power supply rails. Go ahead and put the protective cover back on. Get some room here on the bench. Something I never have enough of. For the two of these. Length. Let me rotate these 90 degrees. You never have enough length. That's just reality. And this guy is the grounds. Which I'm going to bring in like so. This lead is the positives. I say this is temporary wiring. Yellow comes over here to yellow. And the brown comes around to brown. So everybody is wired up there satisfactorily. Slide him kind of back here. Turn the main power switch off. Hopefully no smoke or fire. I did see the lights flicker slightly when I powered up. So let's get the meter here. Take a look at what we've got. Hopefully I can get the meter on camera without a ton of glare. So what I should have here, if I can get the leads untangled, let me flip the power back on, is pin 1, is it 1 and 51 here? I believe are, so these two pins down here are going to be negative, and there should be +8 here. 7.6, a little low. I wonder if I can crank that up any. It's a little under what I'd like to see. I believe there's an adjustment in there. Getting eyeballs on the adjustment is going to be interesting. You know, for 5-volt regulation, 7.5 is still 2.5 volts overhead. That should be plenty. I can see the adjustment, but it's really tricky to get to. I think I'm just going to call that close enough. We'll find out. If the system doesn't run, then I'll have to come back and revisit that. But I should have ground. +7.6. Should be +7.6 there as well. This contact here should also be ground. And again, we should see +7.6 and +7.6. I should have +16 right here. Well, it's +15. And I should have -16 right here. Okay. So it looks to me like the power supplies are good. So really the next step is starting to populate it and see if it actually runs. And that's going to require me to get down on the other bench where all the hardware is and start to plug stuff in and play. And of course the depth of this is going to make that challenging to get on camera. But so far everything there is looking fine. I'm going to grab a couple of these old cards and just put some load on it. Graphics adapter, I have no idea. My idea here is to get some load on it. Figure out a good ground point. If I can spot something here I can clip onto as ground. Nothing's really jumping out as a good ground. Of course it's not. Power supply is off. Get a ground connection, see if I can, maybe one of these 3 pins up here. So that center pin is a ground. If I can clip onto it here, like so, get it to clip on and stay clipped on. Back to volts. We should still see +8, hopefully no smoke. +7.5, let me hit some TTL devices on this front board and look for 5-volt regulation. Got 5-volt regulation there. 5-volt regulation there. I don't know why I'm not seeing 5 volts here where I would expect to see. Those pinouts must be oddball. Or maybe there's a bad regulator on this car. That should be a 5 volt output. I think that's a 5 volt output. That's plus 11. And if I can see the pins here. Minus 12. So there's minus 12. It was plus 11 something. 11.74. I'll have to look at those two regulators. I mean, I can get the power switching my fingers here. It's the reason I put the strip back on, is I can't get in there accidentally and shock myself. See if we can get this card up out. And I saw that's a 79M12, and we saw a negative 12 there, and that's a 78M12. We saw plus 12 there. So that says to me all of the regulators are working. These are 7805s. We saw plus 5 on the outputs of both of those. I'm going to do this one more time. 7812 and the 7912's on top. So let me do this one more time. One more pass. Power back on. And this should have been minus 12 up here. And it's minus 12.0. This was the plus 12 regulator at 11.74. It's a little low. And these were two plus 5 volt regulators. This just confirms to me I've got the power rails correctly on the motherboard. These old cards, I don't want to call them scrap, but I don't have any manuals or anything for them. They're getting me regulation, which is a good thing. Boy, getting these out of here is difficult. Rough on the fingers, all of those solder joints on the back of the boards, all those sharp pins. But we saw regulation in all 3 segments. And I've ohmed this all out. I'm confident the powers are every place, but we've seen regulation in all 3 segments, which says the power looping I've done is getting all through 3 motherboards, or 3 segments of the motherboards. We saw power regulation on all the cards. We confirmed plus and minus 12. On that card we had up front. So I really think this is happy and ready to go. So, you know, it's like everything. It's one step forward. Rethink, 3 steps back. There's been a lot of step back and rethink in this build, which is fine. But we're getting close. This is getting close to something I can actually get mounted up in that case. And see where we get. So we'll pick up in the next video with swapping cards into this motherboard and seeing if we can get an operating system. So I will see you in that video.